Hello, hello, everybody. I can see that I've already forgotten my water. So I am going to hope I don't have a coughing fit in the middle of this because I'm going to be talking for a couple of minutes. Hi, Michael. Hi. My name is Carmen. If you're on my page, then you are a friend of mine or a distant friend, family member, someone that was referred to my page. Today, I am speaking to you from a health coach perspective. And as a disclaimer, if you haven't read my disclaimer in the definition of what I'm talking about today, I am not a medical doctor. I don't act like a medical doctor. I don't know half what the medical doctors do about medicine or, diseases and things like that. But my experience is, over 10 years as a health coach, helping hundreds of clients and hundreds of people regain their health. I've also been studying health and mental health and emotional health and wellness for, 1990. I want to say the early 90s when I started reading about it. So almost 20 plus years or more. So today I am talking about symptoms and medical conditions. And it is after hours here. People are coming home from work. So if dogs start to bark, I will mute for a moment, let it pass, and then I'll come back. So if barking dogs put you off, you may not want to hang around. But here's the deal, you guys. So, many times people, and let me say this ahead of time too, I'm going to be using the word diagnosis only as it pertains to it's a common word that people are given when they're given something, they're told something about their medical history or their medical condition. So if I say the word diagnosis, it's not me diagnosing you or saying that that I can diagnose anyone or anything like that. It's just a term that I'm using because it is a common term when it comes to discussing medical conditions and diseases. So with that said, hello everybody. Hi to all my health coaches and friends and family. And I see some people from Clarksville on here and some people actually from Minnesota, from where I used to live. So good to see everybody. Any questions you have about what I'm talking about, please put in the comments. I'm happy to speak to whatever concerns or questions you have. So here's what I'd like to tell you about diagnoses and symptoms. Now, when we go to the doctor and we are given we're given a series of lab tests, usually, hopefully you guys are getting comprehensive lab tests at least once a year to get a baseline for your health. It is important to do that. You can go to a doctor to do that, or you can actually get your own lab tests online. Now, if you do that, you need to make sure that you know somebody that is able to interpret those labs for you and help you to understand them. So when you get labs back and a doctor says to you, you have been diagnosed, and I'm going to use my own, diagnosis that I received many years ago of hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition. So the doctor said to me, and I'm just going to lay this out for you. They said, you have been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, an autoimmune condition of the thyroid, which means that your thyroid is being attacked by your immune system, which means that your thyroid will eventually fizzle out and die, and you will be on medication for the rest of your life. Right? Isn't that a great thing to hear? You're sitting there thinking, I've been in pain and I've been dealing with problems for almost a decade. I don't feel good. And then you get to go to a doctor who then tells you, basically gives you a life sentence of a thyroid disorder that is going to make you tired. It's going to make you fat. It's going to have your hair and your eyebrows falling out. You're also going to end up with, cold hands and feet. You're going to be moody, a whole list and a slew of other things that go along with being given this diagnosis, okay? I remember hearing that and thinking to myself, oh, thank God, somebody finally, after 10 years of trying to figure out why I have all of these weird symptoms going on, someone's able to tell me, oh, you have this. Okay, great. I'm like, then what do we do about it? Where do we go from here? What's the next step? Here's a medication, or a prescription for a medication. They didn't even tell me that it was a hormone they were giving me. Just take this and start with this dosage and then come back. We'll run your labs in 8 weeks and we'll see where you are. So a couple of things wrong with this, right? Number one, that they basically told me my future. They were predicting my future, that my thyroid was going to fizzle out and I was going to get all of these terrible, terrible things wrong with me. Number two, they were giving me another 8 weeks to deal potentially with symptoms that had already been bothering me for 10 years. And number three, they didn't give me any alternative ways to try and, work with the symptoms or feel better or anything like that. Just basically told me that a medication was going to take care of this. Oh, wait, is there another one? Yes, there's another thing wrong with this. They didn't even tell me what the medication was or what it was going to do. Okay. So when I got this prescription, I got this diagnosis, my excitement of knowing what was wrong immediately went to, Now what? Oh my God, are you kidding me? This is my life. This is what I have to look forward to. And so since I've been studying health and wellness for a really long time, I decided that's not okay with me. That's not enough for me. I'm not okay with this. So I started studying and I started reading and learning and digging into where did this come from, right? Where did this diagnosis come from? So let me clear up the difference between diagnosis and symptom. So when someone says you've been diagnosed with something, whatever that thing is really a symptom of something bigger, okay? So let me clarify that for you. When they told me that my thyroid condition was a disease I'd have to live with for the rest of my life, the next step for me as a person, if I'd known what I know now then, would have been to say, okay, what triggered this diagnosis? Where did this come from? What caused my thyroid, my immune system to start attacking my thyroid? Because we're not born that way. Our bodies don't just automatically start to attack themselves. It happens for a reason. So when I went back and had my appointment the following time, it was like, well, it's genetic. Your mother probably has it. Does your mom have thyroid problems? I'm like, well, yeah, she is she's been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. Oh, well, it's genetic. That's why you have it. That's another misinterpretation of what was wrong, because yes, it can be genetic, but it takes something to trigger this, okay? A symptom is something that comes, that happens to you, that you feel, that you experience. So hair falling out, stomach aches, headaches, all of those things. But the thyroid problem that I was diagnosed with was a symptom of something bigger. And as I started to dig into this, and we're still using this as an example because it's easier for me to speak from experience. So as I started digging into it deeper and deeper, I was finding things out that caused this so-called diagnosis, right? Which was really a symptom of something bigger, which was I was eating gluten, which is a trigger for people for Hashimoto's autoimmunity. I was exercising way too much, and it was causing my immune system not to be able to keep up with the things that I was doing in my life, which was causing a lot of stress. I had a toddler at the time. I had all of these triggers that triggered the diagnosis of Hashimoto's and caused my immune system to attack my thyroid, okay? So let's take it further. Let's talk a little bit more about what else is a symptom. Okay, so autoimmunity is prevalent. It's crazy how many people have autoimmunity, don't even know it. So things like this. We've got lupus is an autoimmune condition, right? And it's triggered by environmental factors, food that someone is eating. It's triggered by stress. It is not caused by genes, okay? It is the genetic predisposition might be there, but how we're living our lives is triggering the autoimmunity, is triggering the cancer, is triggering the depression. All of those things are symptoms of a bigger problem. Is this making sense? Can someone throw me like some sort of a yes, I get it? Yes, you're making sense, right? So I see a lot of health coaches on here, and that's because I invited you guys to come in here and see, what it means to really talk about the hard stuff, because this is not a topic that most people, hi Kendra, I see everybody saying hello. Hi guys. This is not a topic that most people think is, it's not the norm, okay? So when someone's given a diagnosis, and many of my clients were given these types of things, they were told they had this, just go home with this prescription, just live with it, right? That was never okay with me. As a health coach and someone that went through this myself, it was never okay with me to hear that my clients were given some sort of a diagnosis, but never a reason for that particular problem. And so I started thinking to myself, you know what? It's really just a symptom. Because as I began to dig into my clients' lives and really get underneath and investigate what's going on here, I was finding out that these were symptoms of the bigger issue. Bigger issues like, oh, someone was eating soy and they had too much estrogen, which caused them to have too much fatigue and gain weight, right? Or maybe, again, usually going back to the thyroid problem, someone was eating way too much, eating too much gluten or eating too much sugar or something like that, and it triggered that Hashimoto's gene and caused them to develop an autoimmune condition, which is a symptom of eating the wrong thing, right? Or living the wrong way, or exercising too much, or using weed killer on their lawn, or cleaning their house with things that weren't healthy. So all of the things that come from our environment, or the food that we're eating, or the way that we're thinking can trigger disease and problems, right? All of those things trigger the symptoms of these bigger problems. So another thing I'm going to throw out there is, people talk all the time about how, these particular genes cause cancer. These genes cause thyroid problems. These genes cause lupus. These genes cause heart disease. These genes cause high cholesterol. Genes don't cause any of those things. They don't cause any of those things. And I'm not a geneticist or whatever the word is. I don't even know the word for that. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't study genes. I don't know a whole lot about them. All I can tell you is this, is that we are all given a set of genes, right? They're passed down from our parents. It's how we live our lives, what we put in our mouths, what we breathe in the air, and the thoughts that we think that trigger that gene to express itself in our body that creates symptoms. That makes sense, guys? Is that making sense? Yes. Yes. And Michelle's saying, I say this, absolutely say this all the time. So, recently had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with someone that said, I'm just trying to avoid, what was it? It wasn't heart disease. That was another conversation. Okay. So it was colitis. Well, my mother had it, her mother had it, and then somebody, I think it was her grandfather. There's like this lineage of colitis. So I know that I'm going to have it. I said, how do you know that you're going to have it? Are you living a life that's going to trigger that colitis to happen? Because if you are, then we can look at that. Hey, Freddie. We can look at that and we can figure out what can we avoid and what decisions can you make in your life so that you don't trigger that genetic expression for colitis. And I'll never forget, she looked at me and she was like, well, I don't understand that. And I said, well, let's break it down. Let me explain it to you. And so I walked through the steps with her and I said, colitis is a symptom. It's a lifestyle symptom. That's all it is. How we think can affect our genes, how we eat, everything affects how our bodies express the genes that are inside of us. So one thing I want to make sure that everybody understands, one more time, I'm not a doctor. I'm not speaking from a doctor's perspective. I'm just a health coach with a lot going on up here and a lot of experience with physical problems of my own and hundreds of clients that I've walked through these types of problems. So the minute that somebody says to me, that it's a genetic thing, I'm going to have this, or it's a genetic thing, I have this, so I'm going to end up on cholesterol medication or whatever it is, I automatically think to myself, what would it be like for you if I could tell you that you could avoid that just by making different decisions about what you're eating and how you're living, how much fun you're having, how you see stress in your life, and what you think in your mind about your body? What if I told you that could be easily avoided if we make some simple recommendations and you make some choices for yourself? And most of the time people look at me like, I don't know, what's that going to entail? They think it's going to entail something super difficult, right? To me, something difficult is being given a prescription that you have to live on for the rest of your life. To me, something difficult is losing a foot because you have type 2 diabetes because you thought you were genetically inclined to have it and didn't think that eating something different would change that for you. So to me, difficult is not eating in a healthier way or meditating or changing the way that we interpret the world around us. Those are the things that we can take at a bite-sized piece at a time and make a really big difference in our lives. Now, a couple weeks ago, I was talking to an old friend, and he was telling me about all of these things that he's got going on. Well, I take this and I take that, and I'm on this and I'm on that. And I said, okay, so let's break down what's going on. How are you living? How are you eating? How are you spending your time? How much exercise are you getting? I think we talked for an hour and 45 minutes. This is a super smart individual too. Let me just throw that out there. This is a very educated person, always has been very educated, super smart, and was given all of this information when he was given his labs and said, this is not good and that's not good and this is this and this is a pill for that and this is a pill for that. And I was simply saying, you know what? This could help that. Let's look at this. If you added this or you thought about this, that might change. And it was like light bulbs everywhere. And he made the decision to go out and purchase a book that I recommended, and he's making those changes and decisions for himself. I wish everyone would take action that way, because when we look at it, none of us is going to have a perfect life full of perfect health. I wish that we could. But, the world that we live in right now, with all of the things that are being sprayed, even in the neighbors' yards around us, or, the things that were in our home before, the carpet in our bedrooms that's full of bromide, or our brand new cars that have bromide, or the fluoride in our water. Like, there's so much. If we really thought about it, it can be very overwhelming. So I like to say, you know, everything can be changed with bite-sized pieces, because that really helps with the overwhelm of it and helps to take the stress out of the changes that we're trying to make. Now, the other thing I want to say is this, is some people are happier just taking a pill and managing the symptoms. But make no mistake that when you're taking that pill or that statin for your cholesterol, or whatever it is that you're taking, that immunosuppressive drug for your lupus, or your, you know, I don't know, there's a million diseases I could come up with, but when you're taking that pill, all you're doing is managing symptoms. You're not changing the course of the disease. You're not changing the diagnosis. Yes, an immunosuppressive drug may drive, you know, something into remission short term, but if you don't change the way you live, you don't change the way you think, you don't change your relationships or the fun you're having or the way you see the world around you, that's going to come right back at some point in your life, and you're going to be right back on that drug again. And at some point, that immunosuppressive drug may not work anymore. So doesn't it make more sense to see the things, the diagnosis? Again, I'm not diagnosing, but I'm using the word, which I always tell health coaches, don't use the word diagnosis when you're working one-on-one or in your groups with people, but I'm using it as a delivery system here. When you're given that diagnosis, doesn't it make more sense to think, how can I get to the bottom of this symptom that's happening in my body right now so that it doesn't come back? Think of, think of all of like the pre-existing conditions and all the insurance and all the companies that are denying people all day long because of what a diagnosis is, when really it could just be a symptom of something bigger that could go away. It does not make sense to just continue accepting chronic conditions and diagnoses as a life sentence. It doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense to continue to just fill prescriptions and cover up symptoms. It only makes sense if you want to continue for your health to go downhill, and to eventually have your friends and family, depend on friends and family to take care of you, and you know, and to live a suboptimal life that's, you know, not active, that you don't feel your greatest at. So why am I doing this live on my personal page? Because, you know, here's the thing, you know, I get a lot of messages, you know, and requests for answering about health conditions. I have people say, well, I just have a quick question. Can I just ask you something real quick? You know, how do you deal with this? Or how can I look at this or this? And it's all, the answer is always going to be the same. The answer is always going to be, stop living in a standard American lifestyle. Stop eating a standard American diet. Stop thinking like a standard American thinks, that life is out to get us and all that. Trust me when I tell you that I understand stress. Trust me. Divorce, surgery, a move, and a teenager, and a lot of really heavy business changes, all in less than 8 weeks. So if anybody understands stress, it's me. And I have my moments where I'm like, I do my crying, and I do my complaining, I call my support, my family, my friends, I get it out of my system. And then I say, how can I fix this? How can I see it differently? How can I push forward so that I don't succumb to all of the things that could happen to me just because I think that my life is destined to be this way, right? And we have no idea how powerful our thoughts are until we continue to go down a rabbit hole of negative thinking, and then our health follows that rabbit hole downhill. Thank you for the hearts and likes. You guys are getting what I'm saying here, right? So for me, I've never been a person that gives up. I've never been a person that's just okay with being given a diagnosis or life being suboptimal for me. I've never been okay just being, living the status quo. I want an optimal life. I want a happy life, and especially since given a new lease on life after my divorce and getting out of a situation that was making me sick in many different ways, I am no longer okay with someone saying, this is what's wrong with you, live with it. That won't happen. I will always chase and investigate the cause and the reason. Thank you so much for all the love you guys are throwing me, because you get it. And this is the way that we should start changing our clients' thought process and our own as well. We should not be living suboptimal lives because someone hands us a script and a diagnosis. It's just not okay. It's not okay. So my action steps for people today are this. If you've been given a diagnosis, or you have a chronic condition, or you have something that you've been living with for too long, and you're not happy, and you're fatigued, and you're tired, and all of that, and you're sitting there taking that diagnosis from that conventional medical system or wherever you got it from, and I'm not knocking medicine, okay? It has its place. It absolutely has its place. If you're sitting there and thinking that that's your life, get curious. Care more about yourself than being okay with a piece of paper and a diagnosis for the rest of your life. Really put yourself on the map and figuring out what the hell is wrong with me? Where did this come from? And then hire a health coach to help you dig into that. Hire a functional health coach that's going to dig into the reason that you have these symptoms so that you can wipe that diagnosis off your list, right? So, and I want to tell you just two stories. One, the endocrinologist that I went into, I think it was probably my 4th endocrinologist at Vanderbilt, a specialist at Vanderbilt, that said, you know, you have Hashimoto's, you have a thyroid disease, you're going to live with this for the rest of your life. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? You're like the 4th person that's told me that. And maybe I will have Hashimoto's for the rest of my life, but it's not okay to tell me that my thyroid's going to die and that I'm going to get fat and that my hair is going to fall out and my life is going to fall apart. I said, I will never refer someone to you, because you giving a death sentence out to somebody, that is absolutely not okay with me. So I told her to take her prescription. I told her to do whatever she wanted with it, but I was going to find somebody that was going to be proactive for me and my health and going to work with me to find out what happened. Where did it come from, right? Turns out that person ended up being me, and I did all the work, because after 21 doctors of trying to figure out why I felt so bad, absolutely no support from the person that I was married to, and me making his life harder too, by the way, because I was miserable, I decided I was going to take my health in my own hands. I was going to fix the problem myself. But not everybody has that resilience, and not everybody has that tenacity and that type AAA personality that says this isn't okay, I need and want more in my life, right? A health coach can do that for you. They can help, you know, carry that heavy load and that burden for you. They can help you figure it out. They can help end the overwhelm of all of the stuff that if you type one word about thyroid in Google, just back up and get ready. If you put in cancer on Google, I mean, it's going to flood you, right? How about looking up causes of and finding out a functional way to approach those things so that we can get underneath it and fix it, right? It doesn't matter, you guys, what it is. It doesn't matter what the diagnosis on that medical chart is. It doesn't matter. It could be depression. It could be rosacea. It could be plantar fasciitis. It could be a slipped disc. It doesn't matter. It could be autoimmunity of any kind. Those are all symptoms of a bigger problem, and that problem is underneath the surface somewhere. But I really want to encourage people to care enough about themselves to make the changes that they need to be able to wipe that off your list, honestly. Okay, so the other thing I want to say is this. I had a client at one time that had ulcerative colitis, and we really overhauled everything that she was doing. When I say we, it was because I was her partner, I was her health coach, I was lifting her up. Her partner in her health, I mean. I was there, the person that was there just, you know, whenever she wanted to walk off the ledge with the changes, I was there to say, let's make it easier for you. And because the doctor had given her a very short amount of time. He said, you've got this amount of time. If you can't fix this, then you're coming back and we're gonna do dissect part of your colon. And I said, that's not okay. Did he give you anything else? And he gave her an immunosuppressive drug to take. I would say, and she would have to chime in, and she's not on here that I can see, but I would say it was very shortly after, just a matter of several weeks, where she started to feel better. And when she went back for a follow-up colonoscopy and a checkup, the doctor said, I really don't want to know what you're doing. I really don't care what it is, but keep doing it, right? Then the other doctor she went to said, what have you been doing? I mean, everything is clear. You're in remission. Oh my gosh. And that doctor had an open mind and actually was able to take some of those suggestions and use them with other clients, other patients. So we never know who we're going to affect by being our own advocate or having somebody that helps us to find those reasons that we're not well, right? I also had a family of 4, daughter with rheumatoid arthritis, sweetest family ever. That family took complete charge of their health. Everybody lost weight. Their eczema and psoriasis got under control. The daughter's remission, rheumatoid arthritis went in remission. Another doctor she'd been seeing since she was, I think, 4 years old, if I'm remembering correctly, told her, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know what you're doing. Don't tell me anything, because they ended up not using the drugs that they recommended, if I'm not mistaken. And they said, okay, fine. And so they continued to, live a paleo lifestyle, reduce all the inflammatory foods, remove all the things that were causing the inflammation, and the daughter continued to thrive. It's one of my favorite stories because it was a family that deeply cared about changing the way that they were living their lives, and it affected their children, and their children get to carry that forward. age 4, rheumatoid arthritis, age 12, was able to turn around and change her life. This is not me going, oh, I'm so great. I didn't do it. All I did was say, I have so much information that can make a difference for your life. Let me share that with you. And then it's up to that client to make those changes and decisions. I'm not going to feed you. I'm not going to prescribe. I'm not going to diagnose. I'm not going to move into your house and cook for you. I'm not going to do any of that for you. But I am, as a health coach, going to tell you, I'm going to support you. And I'm going to try to find a way to figure out where this came from. Why are you not well? Let's look at this really deeply. Let's look at your food. Let's look at your bowel habits. Let's look at your support system. That's hugely important. If you don't have a supportive spouse or a supportive family, it's just not, you're not going to get well as quickly as you could. Let's look at how you feel about yourself. Let's look at, the trauma that you went through as a child. How were you born? And I tell my health coaches this story all the time. And I think stories are powerful. Hi, Tammy. I think stories are powerful so that you understand that this isn't just me, talking because I think this way. These are real stories. This is real and true methods of helping people get well. But a girl was constipated, 43 years old, if I remember correctly. And she said, I've never been able to go to the bathroom. I was born constipated. I said, okay. All right, let's go back. So we timelined back through her life. We went through teenage years or 20s or teenage years, everything, and I said, okay, anything significant there? Do you ever remember being regular at any time? Let's keep going. Let's keep going. What about elementary school? And on and on. Nope, nope, no. I said, okay, you know what? We're practically back at utero here. So I need you to have a conversation with your mom and find out what was her life like when she was pregnant with you. Have that conversation. Ask her, what was it like? Don't feed her with words like stress or anything like that. Just tell her to tell the story. Turns out her mother was under a significant amount of stress, unhappily married, and constipated. So what does that mean for this person, right? This person was in her mother's body when this happened. You can think whatever you want about this, but this is the truth. This is a true story of a client that I worked with. And that client, after we discovered that and after we uncovered that, she had that deep discussion with her mom and she learned all of those things. We did a couple of changes, added a little magnesium in there, got things kick-started with some changes to her food. But she immediately, I would say 7 days, something like that, after those changes were made, and after she started processing the fact that this was no longer her issue, it had come from her mother, she became regular, literally going to the bathroom every day, and then increased, I think it was to 2 times a day. This is important stuff, you guys. We eliminate toxins through our body, through our bowels, for one area. If someone is constipated, they are chronically inflamed and their bodies are sick. So one of the first things we do is we get our bowels moving. But how many times have we been diagnosed, not we, and I keep saying we, not that I've had all those problems, but I'm just trying to make it more personal here. How many times have people been diagnosed with, another example, irritable bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome? That's a real diagnosis, okay? Let me make it super clear for you how ridiculous this is. Irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease. And you go in and the doctor tells you that's what you have. Here's your diagnosis. Well, you walk into the doctor and you say, my stomach has been bothering me. I've got chronic diarrhea. I can't even leave my house for work in the morning. This is a real client too. She had, I think it was irritable bowel syndrome is what she was diagnosed with. Anyway, I'm just, my bowels aren't right. So basically she said, my bowels are irritated, right? My bowels are irritated. Something's wrong. Oh, well, you have irritable bowel syndrome. Well, no shit. I just told you that. Oh, well, so she diagnosed herself. He gave her nothing more than telling her that her bowels were irritated. Do you see? It's a symptom. She walked in with the symptom of an irritable bowel. She walked out with a diagnosis of an irritable bowel. That absolutely makes no sense with a pill. So I said, okay, let's look at your food. All right, you eat a lot of dairy. How about you consider reading this article I'm going to share with you about dairy and IBS, acronym for irritable bowel syndrome. And then you make the decision that you feel comfortable with on whether or not you think it's a good idea to take it out for a bit and see what happens. 3 days later, solid poop, no more delay going to work, 100% turnaround. She had a dairy intolerance. And she never filled the prescription, okay? So my point is this, just another thing, depression, right? Depression, what does it mean? It means to depress. It means to depress thoughts and feelings and emotions. And when we don't deal with thoughts and feelings and emotions from trauma, from current life situations, from things that we're fearful or afraid of, we depress them. Then what happens? Then we lower our stomach acid. Then we lower our immune system. Then our serotonin, which is 80% in the gut, gets depressed. Then the whole system goes haywire. We don't have a shortage of antidepressants, okay? We have inadequate methods of dealing with the symptoms that we're dealing with in the diagnoses that we're given. That's what we have, is a chronic problem in America today. So, you know, this is a hot topic for me, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, because I just don't believe that anyone should be walking around with a prescription and a piece of paper that says that they are this thing. I am not thyroid. I don't have thyroid problems, right? I have a condition, or I don't have depression. We also over-identify with these diseases and things that we're given, you know, and then when we over-identify, it becomes bigger and it becomes who we are. And then of course we're happy to take that pill, because then we're depressed and we're overweight and we're miserable. We're not focusing on the things that are positive and good about our lives and how we can fix them. We're stuck to the things that are bad that someone else told us was wrong with us. There's something very wrong with the way that we're approaching our health today. We're depending on other people to tell us what's wrong. We're depending on other people to fix it. And we're not turning inside and saying, what part am I playing in how my body is reacting to what's happening to me today? Okay, so with that said, if you are a person that's in my community, not a health coach, I mean, if you're a health coach and you want help with your health, you can message me too. But send me a message and just let me know. Just say, you know, you can send me an email, carmenhunterhealth@gmail.com. Or this is permission for this post only. If you message me about anything else, I'm probably not going to answer on Facebook, because I don't use my personal messaging system for anything other than when I request it. But if you send me a personal message and say, I'm tired of walking around with this problem, what can I do? I'm going to be happy to send you some information that might lead you in a different direction. But the first person that has to care about you is yourself. And I personally am a person that cares deeply about other people, to the extent that I've even had to take a break sometimes from working with people, because I don't want to be a person that cares more about you than you care about yourself. That's the beginning of the problem. When someone else cares about you more than you care about yourself, it's time to turn back around, look in the mirror, and find out why that's happening. All right. With that said, nobody has any questions. No one wants to tell me I'm crazy or fired up or loud or annoying. Nothing? No one? Okay. All right. So with that said, you guys, thank you for all the love you're throwing my way. I'm hoping, you know, my hope is that we all can be more accountable to ourselves, and that we can love ourselves enough to want to do more and be better. And that we are not just okay with the status quo mentally, emotionally, or physically. It's not okay to live up suboptimally, because most of the people that I know, I would say 95% of us have children. And if we have children that are watching us walk around, taking a pill every morning, sitting on the couch because we're miserable, we're in pain, going to the doctor every day, being pushed around in a wheelchair because we've been sitting and sedentary for so long that our muscles have atrophied, or someone is, it just, you name it. I'm seeing it all the time, but our kids are watching us, you guys. They're watching the way that we're living our lives. We're modeling the future for our kids. Don't we owe it to them to show them how to care for themselves just as much as we love them, right? And part of that is taking good care of yourself, having good connections, finding out why you're not emotionally stable. Find a therapist, for God's sake. We all need mental, emotional, and physical support if we don't have good connections in our lives. If it's friends, if it's a mom and dad, if it's a spouse, it doesn't matter. Everybody needs somebody. And as Brene Brown says, we're hardwired for connection. So if you think going it alone with a prescription and a diagnosis for the rest of your life is going to keep you happy, more power to you. But I say reach out and use the people in your life that are able to lift you up and support you, and not sabotage your efforts at getting healthier. And Lord, have I seen that too. I had one client, she was trying so hard, and her husband kept bringing home these stupid freezer, what are those things called? You put them in not a Pop-Tart, a toaster strudel thing or something. I don't know why that sticks with me. Probably because when I used to eat them, they were so damn good. But terrible for you. But he used to put a box in the fridge every time he went to the grocery store, knowing that that was her weakness. Come on. Really? You know, so if you're not being supported by someone in your life, find somebody that can lift you up. Hire a health coach, you guys. You're going to pay for it one way or the other. You're either going to pay your doctor for the prescription, the visit, the time, all of the medicine and the things you're going to take, or you can pay a health coach and you can get them to get you on the right track. Okay. All right. Yeah. What Jane is saying, right? What hope does that give our kids? It not a lot. Not a lot. You know, and I will say, I should share the picture that Braden drew for me when he was a little guy. You know, he started reading when he was pretty young. He was a good reader, and you know, it doesn't take much to teach a child the alphabet, right? A through Z. Well, I taught Braden GMO really young. I taught him what GMO was really young, what the symbol looked like with the butterfly, you know, what the words meant and what we won't eat. And I will never forget the first time that I even allowed him to scoot around with his little, you know, shopping cart, the little kids shopping carts. I kept him in my eye. I didn't let him go far away, but I said, you know, I was teaching him about gluten, and I wanted him to be a kid that, you know, made his own decisions, but also understood that I wanted him to have a healthy body as he moved through his life. So I got a lot of resistance from my ex-husband and my kid about going gluten-free. Oh, then we won't have pizza, and we're not going to have this, and we're not going to do that. I'll just allow the complaining. You know, I said, fine, I'm going gluten-free. Everything that I cook in this house, which was 3 meals a day, I cooked everything. On Sundays, I spent hours and hours in the kitchen. And so I said, but what you eat outside of here is up to you. Just know that when you're in this house, whatever I provide for you will be gluten-free. And so I started teaching Braden about why I shopped the way I did, why I made the choices I did. So I sent him around the corner with his little grocery cart, and I said, go find me 3 of your favorite snacks, that have the GMO little label on it, right? This one right here. And he was like, genetically modified organisms, ingredients. He went through all the words in his head that he could remember that we were talking, right? He just ran through them, and he goes, all right. And he comes back and he said, this one has the GF on it, Mom. And I said, gluten-free, good for you. You know, it was his first recognition and decision on his own to make a decision to choose something differently. And then I did the ultimate. I blackmailed him. I said, I'll tell you what. Well, I say motivated him. Blackmail's a little harsh. I said, I'll give you $1 for every day that you're gluten-free. And he was like, oh, game on. So I paid him $30 at the end of the month. He didn't even miss it. He was like, where's my $30? And he went right back out and started eating gluten. And then he came home and he said, I don't feel so good when I eat that anymore. And he's been gluten-free ever since. Now, yes, every now and then, if he's with friends, he'll go out on vacation and he'll eat whatever, but then he comes home immediately. He's like, I want vegetables, I want healthy food. But his body handles it better because he's been training his body since he was a little guy to make good decisions. I didn't force anything on that kid. I didn't tell him you can't ever, I didn't restrict anything. And I let him get educated and make his own choices. And that's what I do with my clients. I educate them. I teach them, you know, why it's important to make good decisions. I help them get prepared in a way that feels really good to them, so they don't feel like I'm forcing my ideas and my ways on them. And then they make the decision to take action on the things that they choose to do. And you need to find a health coach that meets you where you are and takes you where you want to go in a way that feels very low stress emotionally, physically, and financially. If you can't find that person, ask me. I will either be that person for you or I will find that person for you. Take charge of your health, you guys. Be your own health advocate. In the end, you're the only one that can care more about yourself than anybody else can. All right? Happy Monday. Yeah, what a way to open the week, right? All right, you guys. Yeah, it was a fun hunt for him, Jane. He loved it. He loved going around the grocery store with his cart for sure. So anyway, thanks for all the hearts and the love, you guys. And if anybody's listening to the replay here, you know, comments are always welcome. I'm happy to read and hear anything as long as it's constructive. I do not mind to have a conversation live with people about my beliefs and the thoughts that I have about food and the way that we should be living our lives. At all. I don't mind it at all. If you're a doctor and you want to have a conversation, I'm open to that. We can only learn from each other. So, all right, guys, have a good night, and thanks so much for joining. And don't forget, if you're a person that wants more information, you want to take charge of your health, carmenhunterhealth@gmail.com. In the subject line, I want to take charge of my health, or send me a personal message, I want to take charge of my health. You send me anything else by personal message, asking for free help, I'm not going to respond. I'm too busy for that, and I honor myself and my time and my family by you know, being able to help the people that are wanting to help themselves and are committed to themselves. So have a good night, guys.